Join the Raiders Report family and hit that subscribe button. I want to be your go-to spot for all things Raiders. News, rumors, watch parties, whatever it is. When you think of Raiders, I want you to come here to the Raiders Report. So hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and if you don't enjoy today's video, you never have to come back, though it is 100% for free. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. It's Mitchell Renz here, not Jeremy Chugs, from Chat Sports. And we're going to be breaking down the latest on Josh Jacobs because there's a lot to talk about. I wouldn't be able to do today's show if it wasn't for our awesome sponsor, Manscaped. So use code Raiders at manscaped.com. Link's going to be available for you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's show if you want to get your hands on some of the best male grooming products out there. So what exactly are we talking about today? To me, this is going to be everything there is to possibly know about the Josh Jacobs situation from yesterday. Why? Because I think there's a lot of truth that is not being discussed in the media. There's a lot of truth that is not being discussed on social media. Like the amount of things that are being missed right now, because I'm going to be point blank honest with you. The people that are to blame for Jacobs not getting a contract agreement done is not only Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, but Josh Jacobs deserves some blame as well. And you're going to agree after you watch this show. So the latest here on our star running back is, bottom line, the Raiders didn't extend Jacobs yesterday. They had until 4 p.m. Eastern time to get that deal done. And it sounded like that there was a pretty good chance, or at least it was ramping up, that a deal potentially would have gotten done. Now what we're looking at is he's going to have to play on the franchise tag, or he can decide to hold out. You already know that he's not going to be there at training camp. I would not anticipate him to be there for August at all. Maybe he decides to show up for week 1. It's going to be something that we discuss here, because before the deadline, Jacob said that he did not want to play on the franchise tag. Well, now that's his option. Franchise tag, hold out, or I guess he could end up demanding a trade. Before we get into the truth around all this kind of stuff and everything that you guys need to know, I want y'all to show some love to Jeremy, because yesterday was the very first day since I started this YouTube channel, which we've had over 2,500 videos here, that somebody, not named Mitchell Renz, hosted a live show. So if you guys could, go show Chug some love on Twitter. Give him a follow. DM him. Thank you for being able to hold it down yesterday. Him and Roy did an amazing job covering Josh Jacobs' breaking news. You can find his Twitter down in the comments, down in the description. He's also at Jeremy Chugs. So coming up here is everything that you need to know around Jacobs, because I'm a Raiders holic, right? Like, I'm on Instagram, Twitter. I go on Reddit. I go on Google. Wherever there is Raiders content, YouTube, I am looking to see what people say. And the common thing that I'm seeing is the entire story is not being told to me. And my job here is to be able to paint that picture so you guys, when you tune into the Raiders Report, know the entire picture of everything that went down yesterday. So the first thing that I think is important to understand is the Raiders and Jacobs were close to getting a deal done. Like, they were. And anytime that you are close to getting a deal done, that means that certain sides were able to get to at least a close enough spot to be like, all right, we might be able to make this work. And when you hear that, that light bulb needs to go off in your mind and say, well, McDaniels and Ziegler, they did at least try. And what's the biggest indicator to me that they did try? The fact that Josh Jacobs and Maxx Crosby were together in a car outside of the Raiders team facility. The only reason why you drive to the team facility is if you believe that your team and the Las Vegas Raiders are going to end up getting a deal done. From what I understand, Jacobs was ready to sign a deal. He drove, again, I don't know if I shouldn't say he drove. He was with Crosby in a car outside of the facility, and he was there ready to sign the dotted line. Because if you followed this show before, everything that I heard and everything that I reported was that they were confident that a deal was going to get done. Why did that deal not get done? The sides couldn't agree on a few things. So the reason why he went there is because they were. Jacobs was confident and Crosby was confident that a deal was going to end up getting done. And the reason why Maxx Crosby is such an important name to be featured in this and to be reported as being there with Jacobs is Maxx Crosby is the face of the Raiders. It's not Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not Josh Jacobs. It's not Devontae Adams. The face of your franchise, the most important player on your roster, a player who was drafted in 2019 with Jacobs. He was there with him. And Crosby also wanted an agreement to be reached from what I understand. The next thing that you absolutely positively need to know is, and this is the part that I think is starting to get overshadowed, Jacobs' team, Jacobs' agent, they turned down at least 2 deals. At least 2 deals. Because right now what it sounds like for people who aren't following the stories as well as they should, they don't realize that the Raiders offered Jacobs a deal. They offered Jacobs at least 2 contract extensions, and Jacobs and his team, both of those times, said no. The reason why there's a little bit of disconnect is because why is Jacobs showing up to the team facility ready to sign a deal, but his team is not ready to get a deal done? That's a little bit weird to me. Like, there's some sort of disconnect in that regard, and we're going to continue to get into everything that there is to know about this whole Josh Jacobs situation. But remember, today's show is presented by Manscaped, and if you haven't already, it's 20% off. Make sure that you use promo code Raiders at manscaped.com to save on all their awesome male grooming products out there. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about here is we're going to look at the beard hedger, because first impressions are everything. When you walk into a room, guess what? People are going to look at you. And self-care is an extremely important thing the last time I checked. If anybody goes on a date, I hope that you trim up your beard like a pro, and Manscaped is absolutely going to help you do that. And if you're like, Mitch, well, how do I elevate my beard game? Manscaped has all the right tools in order to do that. If you think I have a halfway decent beard, guess what? I use the beard hedger. For the sleekest version of myself, Manscaped has me covered from head to toe, starting with their brand new beard hedge trimmer. With 1 guard and 20 adjustable lengths, this device is the perfect travel companion to take care of your mane wherever you are. So if I'm going to Las Vegas, or if I was in Austin, Texas this past weekend, guess what? I like convenience. I like something that I can have in a good box, giggity, and I can take it with me, and I have the ability to maintain my beard. I tell you guys all the time how clean my balls are, right? And some of you are probably sick and tired of hearing about my balls. So let's talk about my beard. I take a lot of pride in the way that I look. If you look good, you're going to feel good. And I think it's time for some of y'all to start checking out some of Manscaped's products, especially from the belly button up. Go to manscaped.com, 20% off, and you're also going to get free shipping when you use code Raiders. So let's continue to talk here about Josh, because the Raiders offered his first extension on June 8th. That was a Saturday. I got that word from a good source. So the Raiders first started having these contract talks with Jacobs on the 8th. I'll 100% tell you this, or not June 8th. It's actually July 8th. That's on me. It was July 8th on Saturday, and when you hear something like that, okay, that means that they need to really ramp up the process a little bit quicker. Adam Schefter reported, maybe you've heard of him, that Jacobs' team turned down a deal on Monday, July 17th. Then also, the fact that the first extension offered was July 8th. The second offer, from what I understand, was at least July 17th. There could have been another deal offered in there in between to have some sort of negotiations. I am a little bit frustrated that the Raiders waited until July 8th to get that first extension on the table, and I'm also a little bit disappointed in maybe them not being able to come to agreements on a deal, especially when you hear some of the things out there. Now, one of the tweets that I saw was from Kenny King, shout out to him, and talking about resetting the running back market, okay? It was never expected that the Raiders and Jacobs were ever going to reset the market. But as you can see here, Jacobs tweeted, he said, we never retried to reset the market. And when you hear reset the market for the running back position, Chris McCaffrey right now makes the most money per year on his deal at $16 million. The next closest is Alvin Kamara. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, they're at $10.1 million on that franchise tag. So when I hear resetting the market, I'm thinking $16 million per year at least. Jacobs is saying that's not true, which then King Don over here gets called out, and Jacobs says, wrong, stop making shit up, because if you wanted 16 mil, that's slightly below a market reset. That's technically not true. So Jacobs is telling you it's not 16 mil. Cool. So then Kenny King comes back and he says, if it's not the money, it's the security. And that's what Jacobs is saying. So he's saying that the money was not the reason why a deal was not reached. It was security. So when I say, okay, security, not the money, that screams to me the guaranteed dollars. And when I know how long the extension that was offered to Jacobs was a 3-year, my source told me that it was a 3-year deal. At least 2 contract extensions that the Raiders put in front of Jacobs and his team was a 3-year extension. However, I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't know the amount of money that was offered, and I don't know the guarantees in total that were offered. So when I hear that Jacobs wanted security, I instantly think that the guaranteed money must not have been enough. And that is definitely an important thing to look at, considering the fact of the franchise tag is fully guaranteed. So this is my statement right now, and maybe it comes out that we get to see exactly what the contract was offered. I have said on the show before that I would have offered Jacobs a 3-year, $38.4 million contract with $22.2 million guaranteed. I then talked about it on another show where I heard from a source that Jacobs apparently was looking in that $40 million range, somewhere around $30 million in guarantees, which not a full market reset, but it is a little bit more than what the Raiders want to negotiate. I'm going to tell you this straight up. McDaniels and Ziegler are getting a lot of heat, and I am usually the very first person to light that flame underneath both of those guys, because so far, what they have done to this Raiders team, organization, fan base, is definitely not what they were hired to do. But I'm going to tell you this right now. If the Las Vegas Raiders offer Josh Jacobs $22.2 million in guaranteed money on a 3-year contract extension, then I am going to be placing a lot more blame on Jacobs, on Jacobs' team, for not getting a deal done. Because in today's day and age, that type of contract for a running back is a deal that you should take. And if you want to be a part of this team, if you want to be a part of this build that the Raiders are trying to doing in and off season, that you said that you would be okay playing on the franchise tag, guess what? That is more blame on you. And that is something that I need to be able to find out what were the guarantees offered by the Las Vegas Raiders. So now it's your opportunity here to go down in the comments and give me your thoughts, because that's what we do here. What is your one-word reaction to hear that Josh Jacobs turned down 2 separate offers from LV? And I don't know if I should say Josh Jacobs turned it down, because from what I understand, Jacobs wanted to sign a deal. It almost sounds like Jacobs' agent was the one that said, it's a no deal for me. So what is your one-word reaction to hearing that Jacobs' team turned down not 1, but 2 separate offers from Las Vegas that had at least 3 years tacked to a contract extension? Let's go to another thing that every single person needs to know. He will hold out until September. He's not going to be at training camp, so don't even think about that happening. Veterans report to training camp July 25th. He's also not going to be there in the preseason whatsoever. And I say he's going to hold out until September. Really, probably what I should have said is he's definitely going to hold out until August 29th. This is the next important date for Jacobs. And I don't know personally what he's going to do. I'm not trying to speak for Josh. But in terms of me doing this as long as I have, and I've been covering this Raiders team very closely, when you consider the fact of Ziegler and McDaniels, think about last offseason. They gave a monster contract extension to Derek Carr. Let's face it, that turned out to be a failure. They gave a monster contract extension to Darren Waller, making him the highest paid tight end in the NFL. That did not work either. They gave a contract extension to Hunter Renfrow last year, 2 years, $32 million. I would say so far that they regret that contract extension. They gave one to Maxx Crosby. They gave Devontae Adams a big deal. The Chandler Jones deal that they gave did not quite work out. So this offseason, which we saw in free agency, the Raiders were afraid to spend big on a player because last offseason they felt like they got bit in the butt. So when it comes to the 53-man roster, and you have to go from your roster cut-down date from 90 all the way down to 53. And technically, with David Agoa, the Raiders international pathway player, you can technically have 54 players on the Raiders roster this year. This organization is going to want to know from Josh on August 29th, hey, we got to cut down right now. And I don't want to take away jobs from people who have been busting their hump in July and in August. Can I count on you to be there week 1? I actually think if Jacobs doesn't give them a solid answer in terms of Can you rely on somebody who was a team captain for you last season to be on your roster come August 29th? That's where this is really going to get interesting for me. I think trades are absolutely going to be on the table. I think Josh could demand a trade. I think McDaniels and Ziegler would be like, we don't want a locker room cancer here during the season when we're trying to build something. So put August 29th in your calendar right now because this is very important when it comes to Josh Jacobs. Let's go to the next thing here. He's going to play on the franchise tag. I know I talk a lot about trade rumors. I know Jacobs is obviously upset. He posted on his Instagram story today that you should always bet on yourself. And guess what? Whatever you're doing in life, you should 110% always bet on yourself. You know why? Because nobody's going to believe in you a lot of the times the way that you do. So I get that. But Jacobs also has to look at himself in the mirror and say, you know what? This isn't a personal attack against me. This is just the running back market. The fact that both Jacobs and Saquon Barkley did not get a deal yesterday speaks volumes. The fact that a running back of Austin Eckler's caliber said, hey, I wanted to be traded, and it was crickets. Jacobs has to realize right now in this current market at $10.1 million that there is not going to be a team out there that is going to make that type of deal for him. And Jacobs needs to realize that the running back market is low, and he needs to take his guaranteed money because it's the best deal that he's going to get. And it's not a shot at Jacobs. Is it unfair? Yes. Do I think all the running backs in the NFL need to get together and figure something out to go forward? Yes. It does sound like that all the running backs in the league have a little text messaging thing going on and that they're talking to each other. It should be that way. But I also know the way that Ziegler and McDaniels think, okay? And all they're looking at is this year right now, because if they stink in 2023, it's going to be even more difficult for them to say, hey, we deserve a job in 2024. So the way that I was told, the way that the Raiders were looking at this whole Jacobs contract situation was not so much a full 3 years. They were looking at it for this year in terms of what Josh was making in terms of cap numbers by running backs. So when you look at NFL running back cap numbers this upcoming season, Derrick Henry's number one at $16.4 million. Nick Chubb is $14.9, and then Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard are third for how much money counts against the cap by their team. So McDaniels and Ziegler are probably trying to tell Jacobs, hey, you're technically the third highest paid running back in terms of cap numbers this upcoming season. When you look at some of the other contracts out there, like Mixon technically makes more, Aaron Jones technically makes more, Alvin Kamara technically makes more, Christian McCaffrey's got $12 million in cash. Those players will make more money in cash, but for the Raiders, who historically sounds like they don't have as much cash because of Mark Davis, they have to rely on the cap. And when you got over $30 million in dead cap, I would say this was one of the biggest selling points that McDaniels and Ziegler were trying to sell to Jacobs and saying, hey, technically you're going to make the third most money in terms of cap number this upcoming season. So my next question is this, because my answer is going to be coming up here after this YouTube ad break. Will this be Jacobs' final season with the Raiders? I want you to type your Y for yes, or I want you to go down to the comments right now and type your N for no. My answer is this is going to be 2023 is going to be the final season with Josh Jacobs and the Las Vegas Raiders. And both parties are going to want to have a happy divorce. I'm not going to say it's going to get ugly the way that Derek Carr and the Raiders divorce happened, because that one was really, really ugly. This is going to be a mutual split. And the reason why that I say that is because the Raiders are, I shouldn't say the Raiders, McDaniels and Ziegler have a blueprint where you don't give a running back that fifth-year extension. For everybody out there saying, oh, the Raiders should have given Jacobs his fifth-year extension, we wouldn't be in this spot now, you would be in the exact same freaking spot. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything. So let's just end that right away. The second part of it is this. The Raiders will not place another franchise tag on Jacobs at $12.1 million. They won't do it. They will rather hand the keys to Zamir White. They would rather look to go a cheaper running back market way. That's the way that their mindset works, and they have stuck to that blueprint. Decline the fifth-year option, place the franchise tag on Jacobs, and then it's done. Then you can go draft another running back or go with your young guy. And then for Josh, he's not going to want to do this all over again. He's saying to himself, man, I just had 2,000 total yards, and you still won't pay me? He's going to go into next offseason and say, hey, I don't want to be a part of this team anymore after this year, and unless they win a Super Bowl. then this can totally change. But to me, I think Jacobs is going to want to go into offseason next year. He's going to say thank you to the Raiders organization for drafting him. He's going to be a Raider for life, but he's going to put his best foot forward in trying to get that bag, because after this offseason, there is no way he thinks that him getting a bag is going to be with the Las Vegas Raiders. So in conclusion, and this is very important, both the Raiders and Josh Jacobs' team are responsible for not getting a deal done. Say that again with me, because there is way too much blame on Ziegler and McDaniels right now when it is not warranted. Jacobs and his team, they deserve blame too. When you're a running back in today's market and you tell your organization that you are willing to play on the franchise tag, and your team places the franchise tag on you, and then a few months go by, and now you're like, well, I don't want to play on the tag because you didn't build a strong enough team. If you're a head coach and you're a general manager, you want somebody that's going to buy in. And that's exactly what McDaniels and Ziegler do. They will sell, it is team first over player. And Jacobs right now is proving that he wants to be player over team. I don't necessarily blame him for wanting to get his bag, but at the same time, it makes sense for Jacobs to want to get paid, and it makes sense for the Raiders to not want to pay him, because they are not a Super Bowl caliber team right now, coming off a year after a 6-11 win. So let's get one thing very clear. The Josh Jacobs contract extension, it is Josh Jacobs' fault, and it is the Las Vegas Raiders' fault. Both parties are at fault for that deal not getting done.